What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 156, and I am your host, Armando Marsal. You can check out all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me on the X machine at Armando underscore Marsal, as well as on Instagram threads and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, or leave a like wherever it is you're consuming it. Every bit of your support does help the podcast continue to grow. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Your support truly means a lot to me, and I appreciate you guys spending a little portion of your day here with me. Remember, you could check out this show, this episode, and all of the previous episodes over at my YouTube channel at My The Marsal. So make sure you're following, subscribing there, liking, reviewing. Feedback is always great, ladies and gentlemen. So check out the video content and let me know what you guys think there. It is Friday, August 21st. We have some preseason games tonight. We had some preseason games yesterday. We're continuing here our training camp report series with another round of news, notes, and storylines from around the NFL. We are getting closer to week one, so a lot of this information becomes a little bit more meaningful, and it becomes more important, right? Increasingly important here as far as some of the injury news, some of the depth chart moves, some people missing practice, others standing out. All of that information is important, especially the steady ones, right? And we're going to go over some of that here today. We have more defined roles, more defined depth charts. Injuries are piling up. There's clear indications on how teams are going to go and what direction they're going to go, maybe at the starting quarterback. We're going to go, as usual, position by position, just like I've done in every single one of the episodes from this series. And basically, the biggest things we're going to be looking at are the roles are becoming clear. And like I mentioned, there's been a lot of injuries, some notable names battling injuries, some sidelined for extended period of time. So we're going to talk about all of that here today, how all of this information, how that impacts the fantasy football landscape. That's all important, of course. And then I'll also point out some of the things that, we might have seen in the storyline, the headlines, or some stories we may have read, maybe a little bit of noise. Maybe it's not really that important. So we're going to go over each and every one of those things here on this show. All right, we're going to go position by position, like I mentioned before. And before we jump into it, I just want a couple takeaways, from Thursday night's games, and only a couple things, really, not a ton. Fernando Mendoza, after looking great in his first preseason game, he had a rough outing yesterday. I threw that pick six, just didn't look obviously as comfortable there. Is that a big thing for me? No, man, there's going to be growing pains. I still think that, this young man, his work ethics, the skill sets are there. I think he has a good supporting cast. I think the long-term outlook is a positive one. Will there be growing pains? Will there be struggles? Absolutely. I definitely think that there is. And that could be said about a lot of young quarterbacks. So, some hit the ground running. Some take some time to develop. Some hit the ground running. Then they regress, right? And then they come back out of that. I'm not too concerned there with that, with his performance. Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, he's going to be the week one starter. I've been saying that since week one. All reports indicate the same thing. And I think that the smart way to do this, if you're Las Vegas, is you start Kirk Cousins in early on the season. You develop Mendoza. And at the end of the season, if you want to bring him in or whatnot, I don't think you have to put him out there right now. I don't think that's necessary. I know that he's, the number one overall pick. I know the fans want to see him. I know from a franchise standpoint, you want to see the future out there already. But we've seen a lot of great quarterbacks benefit from sitting out for a while, right? So I really hope they take that approach here with Mendoza, because I wouldn't want I wouldn't want him to get off to a rocky start to his career simply because he was thrown into a situation he wasn't ready for. So I think we're going to see some ups and downs with him. I think, but overall, I think the long-term outlook remains positive here for Fernando Mendoza. So I'm not overly concerned. And I don't think that pick six is determining whether he's starting or not. In week one, I always thought, and all reports have always indicated that it is Kirk Cousins to, the week one starter there. Woody Marks looked good. He's looked good now the last couple of games. I still think David Montgomery is going to be that guy, but I do think that Woody Marks makes for a strong handcuff, right? And I do think that he is going to have a role in the passing game. I do think he's going to have some big gains throughout the season. I don't necessarily know if I don't believe he's going to offer week to week standalone value. I do think that there are going to be some weeks, some situations that he will. But he's certainly making the case for a larger role, right? He's certainly making the case for him to eat up some of those David Montgomery touches. Again, I still think it's going to be David Montgomery. But without question, I think Woody Marks has done a really good job where he's going to at least operate as the third down back, pass catching down back. And I could see him, being that solidified handcuff there for David Montgomery. So another player, this is a rookie who now has stood out back-to-back games. Deshaun Stribling, we've seen his ADP skyrocket over the last week or so. He had another big performance, obviously becoming a favorite target of Brock Purdy there. The 49ers, man, with Pearsall out, you got George Kittle getting a second look. It looks like he's okay, but he's returning from injury. Mike Evans, Christian Kirk dealing with their little fair share of dings and dunks. Like they're dinged up there. So um, it's giving Stribling some opportunities, right? I don't necessarily think when everyone's healthy, if he's going to, be able to carve out a consistent enough role where he's going to give you a weekly floor. But without question, this young man is talented, right? And without question, like if he is getting opportunities on a consistent basis, I do expect efficient and productive outings out of him. So he's someone that I'm drafting, maybe not with the intention of starting him in week one if everyone in San Francisco is healthy, but without question, I do think it's a good player to at least draft and stash early on in the year, see how this shapes out in San Francisco. Because if he does carve out a consistent role and he's getting opportunities on a week-to-week basis, he clearly has flashed the ability to produce at a very good level here. Granted, it's preseason, but you're watching this young man make some pretty incredible catches and plays. So, very excited to see him, produce it the way he's doing. Someone that has moved up my board and I see moving up draft boards at an insane rate here. So I wouldn't go crazy, right? Let's not go crazy now. But definitely someone you could still be investing in at his current ADP there. So I actually just took him in one of the latest best ball drafts I'm in. I'm in the slow draft. I took him in, I think, my last two best ball drafts that I've been. So someone that's definitely a little bit more on my radar, now that I'm watching him play. These are the steady ones, right? Like this is a perfect example of that steady drumbeat, right? Like that without question. The reports have been positive, the practices have been good, the beat writers have been raving about this young man. Everything has looked great. And at the end of the day, he's producing exactly with what it's kind of going in line. It's in sync with what we're seeing in the report. So everything's kind of lining up, and we're seeing it firsthand here. So there's a great example of when you hear that steady drum beat, follow that steady drum beat because it can lead you to the promised land here. There extremely. So, like I said, we got a lot of news to cover here today. We're gonna, it's probably the running back position I would say is the one that's going to be the lengthiest here this evening. There will be some quick hits. And again, I'm recording August 21st, like I mentioned, Friday afternoon. I'm recording before tonight's game, so I won't be discussing anything about tonight's games as far as what I see or what I don't see. I gave some brief takeaways from last night's games, but we're focusing now on a lot of news, notes, and just storylines from training camp. Some are going to be quick hits, just following up. If you've been tuning in every episode of this series, some of these are just going to be follow-ups from previous episodes, just so that you know where we stand now compared to maybe last week or the week before that. So, Patrick Mahomes, talk about steady drum beats. That's been consistent here. He remains on track to be ready for week one. He's been able to practice without missing anything, no setbacks, looks strong, apparently feels comfortable. We obviously will see that firsthand when he, suits up for the first time and plays, a regular season snap. But again, I do expect that maybe there's going to be some rust to be shaken off. I expect maybe some time for him to get going. But if he's truly 100% and he's moving 100%, we know what the kind of production that this quarterback can bring to the table. Mahomes is one of the best in the NFL. Obviously, will improve his supporting cast without question. So, I'm still, I'm okay with drafting him as your QB1. I just think that that's taking a bit of a volatile approach because, he is returning from an injury. Um, I more is inclined to take him in a super flex league as my QB2. But again, if he is 100% healthy week one and he's literally doesn't skip a beat, and returns to form, we know what kind of quarterback we're getting, right? He's going to be a QB1 for fantasy managers. So it's just a matter of whether you want to take that risk or not. I'm probably I don't see the need to take the risk. But again, just because I don't like to draft two quarterbacks and I I feel like you might have to draft two quarterbacks from Mahomes. But again, it's a risk whether you want to take or not. He's a fringe, low end QB1, high end QB1 right now. QB2 on my board. And again, simply because he's returning from injury. A healthy Mahomes is a QB certified QB1 in my book. We talked about the Raiders. I have this on my notes here, but we already talked about the Raiders. I wanted to point out, obviously Kirk Cousins remains like the guy there. You look at Geno Smith, he's dealing with some foot issues there. It's just soreness. Apparently, it's not expected to be serious. Obviously, it's something to keep an eye on because the QB situation behind him is not great in New York. Look, it looks like he's going to be able to, to play with this issue, and it's not expected to be serious. So it's just something to just again, this is just little information that okay, now we knew that he was dealing with an issue. Does it come back at any point between now and the start of the season, and how is that going to be impacting the rest of this team? Not necessarily Geno Smith, because most fantasy managers might not be investing in him outside of two quarterback or super flex leagues. So not necessarily him, but the supporting cast, and I think that that's a reason why we should be looking here. Carson Beck, obviously missing time. He continues to deal with that rib injury. There, obviously, it's just meaningful snaps that he's missing, in practice and reps and things like that. That's all it is, really, just something to keep an eye on there. But the quarterback position, like not much, right? Not much at all. Like from what we've been seeing, from what we've been, discussing. There's nothing major going on that we didn't touch base on here today. If there's anything that I didn't touch base on, ladies and gentlemen, that you want me to talk about, or you have any questions, you could email me at mindofmarsal@gmail.com there, and I'll go ahead and answer that on the next episode. Or if you have any questions, I always reply to those emails, and if I sometimes answer the questions in the email if you do have that, and you don't want me to discuss them on the podcast. But we'll jump to the running back position now, and there's going to be a lot of information here. And we talk about, what's noise, what's not, et cetera, et cetera. Kenneth Walker reports have been incredibly strong, like incredibly strong. Apparently, he's receiving both rushing, passing, out there almost every snap. They're utilizing him in the red zone. So this is exactly the kind of things we need to investigate, right? Like where they're utilizing these players. Apparently, Kenneth Walker is being utilized all over the field, both as a runner and as a pass catcher. And that is music to my ears. I am very bullish on Kenneth Walker. I've been drafting him a lot in fantasy. He's someone that I have obviously inside my top 10 at the running back position. When you look at his ADP here, he's coming off the board on average as RB11. To me, I think that that's a very good price tag on a running back who's expected to see an abundance of opportunities in 2026, running behind a solid offensive line, very good offensive scheme, offensive system. You have a healthy Patrick Mahomes, apparently. I mean, I currently have right now, I'm looking at my running back rankings, and I've been messing around with them, with the injuries and stuff. Ken Walker has been very consistent, man. He's been very consistent here, running back 8 on my board. Um, I think he's going to have a monster year so long as he stays healthy. He's just never gotten the full opportunity. He's always had to like share the workload or been injured, whatever the case may be. Like we haven't seen Walker just by himself in the backfield, healthy and, you know, all out. Like that's what we're going to see here, I think, in 2026, so long as he stays healthy, of course. And it's easy to handcuff him, right? Like it's super easy to handcuff him, and you don't have to expend a ton of your draft capital on handcuff. So it's a good backfield to lock in, a pretty easy backfield to lock in, if you ask me. So this is great news, man. Like this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for if you're investing in players. I don't think this is noise. I mean, it's clear that this team wants to run the football, and they brought them in for that reason. So I think Walker again, uh, this should have moved the needle. If you've been listening to us here at fantasyguru.com, it should have moved the needle. We're very excited about Ken Walker this year, and I love this kind of news there. So I'm investing in him happily. Here we go with some injury news. Alvin Kamara, he suffered an MCL injury, expected to be out at least a month. His week 1 status remains highly in question. It's uncertain at this time. There's possibly that that he could miss multiple weeks into the season, right? Like obviously a situation that you have to monitor. You look at, Kendra Miller, he was able to return to practice. Devin Neal returned to practice. We've been seeing Ty Chandler getting opportunities there. Um, for me, this is just great for ETN, right? Like if you look at Travis Etienne, he's someone I talked about, on episode 153 of the Mind of Marcel podcast when I discussed the running back position. In that episode, I talked about how much I like Travis Etienne. This was before the injury, and this injury, in my opinion, just kind of solidifies, that potential, the role for Travis Etienne. I already thought that Etienne was going to be the guy. I didn't really have too much concern regarding Alvin Kamara and what he was going to, take away from someone like a Travis Etienne. But this is just perfect because, you look at the rest of his backfield, I don't see a major threat here. The one thing I will be keeping an eye on is kind of who moves up to that number two spot, where Kamara was going to be sitting if he was healthy. Who moves up to that number two spot? Because I do think that if someone gets that clear cut role behind Travis Etienne, not a bad situation to handcuff you. You're probably not going to have to pay much. But again, if it's a committee behind them, if it's like a RB2A, RB2B situation, then it might be one that I shy away from. We have to keep an eye at the Kendrick Miller situation. Does he stay healthy? We know that he's always battled injuries. He can't stay healthy. Neil dealing with injuries. Can he stay? Like, what happens behind ETN? I think what the news here is we know ETN now. The opportunities are going to be there each and every week. I think he's going to be a three down back for New Orleans. I thought he was going to be that. I thought Kamara would take a couple of opportunities, but I think this really solidifies, the every down role here for Travis Etienne. Let's just keep an eye here behind him. What happens? Is it Miller? Is it Neal? What transpires here? Is it Chandler? What happens here? From behind him, and they have it's basically what we have here. Another injury, this is a notable one. Breece Hall, someone I'm very excited about this year. Unfortunately, dealing with a groin injury that I don't like. Initial reports suggest it's not a serious one. But again, it's one of those situations where we just don't know, right? These soft tissue injuries, it could be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, it could be, a couple months. It just truly depends on the recovery and if there's setbacks and the severity of it and, and all of that stuff. And right now, there's some uncertainty. This is probably going to drop his draft capital. I have enough shares of him already that I don't have to draft more of Breece Hall. I'm still okay with drafting him, but I do think it's a must to draft Braylon Allen, right? If you're drafting Breece Hall, just simply because if he's not ready, or if he's unable to go, Allen will be that guy for New York. You should have been handcuffing Breece Hall if you were drafting him. Outside of, obviously outside of best ball, we really don't handcuff in best ball. But again, it doesn't appear to be serious. The soft tissues injuries, though, they tend to be tricky. I still like Breece Hall. I still am, hopeful that he's able to start in week one and start that bounce back season that I was expecting from him. But this definitely throws like a little wrench into the mix here, right? Like because it's definitely not ideal for a running back who coming off a down season you were having high expectations for and is already dealing with a soft tissue injury. So something I'm going to be monitoring, not anything I'm going to be reacting to just yet. Though what I do hope for is that this knocks down this ADP and we can buy a little bit cheaper shares of our guy there, Breece Hall. We got Rashad White dealing with a hamstring injury there. It doesn't seem to be a long-term or serious injury, but again, hamstring injuries are tricky. We talk about soft tissue injuries. This is one of those injuries. So this has provided Jacory Krosky merit to get more opportunities, both in the passing game and as a runner with the first team. So he's just getting more opportunities there. And you start asking yourself, like, are they going to be utilizing him as a three down back here if White misses any time? I think that this definitely helps JCM, our guy Bill. Um, but again, it's just something to monitor here. I've moved up Bill several slots up, and I've moved down White down my board with this injury. I think Katron Allen becomes an interesting name. He's looked good so far in the preseason. Obviously, just limited time there, but He looked good in the opportunities he got. There's been positive reports about him in camp. He's now become someone that you can look at as a late round flyer, right? If White continues to miss time. Um, so again, just a situation to monitor. I'm not all of a sudden going to draft Bill in every single JCM in every single draft, but I definitely think that he's far more enticing than he was 3 weeks ago, a month ago, right? Especially he's gained those opportunities, and White is missing those opportunities. Remember, this is a new team for White. There's a new offense, a new system, a new scheme. Everything is new for Rachaad White. So this sitting this time out is crucial here for Rachaad White because you have to get that familiarity with the offense, right? With the quarterback, with especially if you're a pass catching specialist, right? Like if that's what they're bringing you in for, it's very important to get that timing and that uh, just that chemistry there. So just a situation to be monitoring there. Najee Harris, the Giants signed him. And I talked about this. This happened on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And I talked about this on the show with Justin Fensterman. And to me, what this means is the Giants might not be fully confident, right? Like I feel like this might be a red flag in where Cam Scadaboo is. He's on the field, he's practicing, but maybe they don't feel like he's 100%. Maybe they don't feel like, you know, he's fully ready to be out there at giving it 100%. There's been the flip that the obviously the video of him flipping and falling. There's a video of him cutting, right, and his knee kind of looks like it buckles a little bit. And maybe they just don't know if he's going to be able to sustain, or go through the entire season, right, without any injuries, given the style of play. And obviously, Tyron Tracy, failed. He missed a pass blocking assignment. It was costly. We know that he's more of a pass catching back. So they brought in Najee Harris. Obviously, he's returning from an injury that he suffered last year, from the Achilles injury he suffered last year. Um, I'm not drafting Harris. I'm seeing that he's like kind of like jumping into 80 in ADP where he's actually being drafted. He wasn't being drafted before. Now people are actually drafting him. I'm still not drafting Harris, but obviously like kind of see how this plays out, right? Like see what happens here, see what transpires here. Does Harris emerge as the number two running back here, right? Like the reports are suggesting he's going to be a significant contributor, and that's quote unquote for those who are not watching, and I'm doing the air quotes here. Um, but this is one of those I don't believe you type of moments. I just don't believe you. I don't believe you. Um, let's see what happens here. I still think Cam Scadaboo is the guy, that's going to be the primary back here. I haven't been investing in Cam Scadaboo that much simply because I'm terrified. I love watching him play. I'm going to be playing him in DFS a lot, probably, often, especially until they adjust his pricing, right? I'm probably going to be playing him a lot. That said, in a redraft format, I don't invest much in him because I don't know if he's going to last all season, simply because of the style of play. And then just the way he carries himself, right? Like just a maniac. He doesn't give a fuck. So, I mean, there you go. Like I've had some shares of Tyron Tracy Jr. That right now the reports aren't great for him. I'm kind of slowing that down. And that's mostly in PPR. But this Harris signing is not good for Tracy Jr., right? Like that is definitely not good for Tracy Jr. So I'm going to see what happens here. I'm going to keep a close eye on the situation. Those of you who were investing in Scadaboo, this shouldn't impact, your decision making. With those of you who are comfortable with Scadaboo, this shouldn't impact that, right? You should be able to stand exactly where you were. It's just now, are you going to be handcuffing with Tracy Jr. or Harris down the stretch, right? Like you got to figure that out. And we got to see what happens here and how all this situation plays out. Um, Jaden Blue, he was dealing with a shoulder injury. He's back on the practice field. Obviously, not ideal for him. He's kind of like moved down the depth chart. Something to keep an eye on. Not overreacting to that because reports have been positive, but the fact that he kind of moved down, the rotation in the drill, might be a suggestion that the depth chart situation for him is moving down as well. So just something to keep a close eye on, right? Like we're not reacting here. I still like the idea of maybe taking a couple of late round shots on Blue, just to see what happens here behind Javonte Williams. We know that Malik Davis has been pushing Blue 4 reps here. So something to definitely keep in mind there for those investing in this backfield here in Dallas. So and then we have, as far as the stock is down for him, right? Like, so we know that. Then we have Judkins. He's continues to miss practice with a nagging injury. Doesn't appear to be serious. This has created opportunities for Dylan Sampson to get some reps here with the first team. Again, a situation to monitor. We know Judkins, the injury plagued history. Obviously, battled injuries last year. Was a concern. In college he battled injuries. Uh, Keep a close eye on it, right? I have been very, very pessimistic when it comes to investing in Judkins this year, simply because the Cleveland Browns offensive line is trash. The quarterback situation there, not great. And then you got a player, returning from injury, already dinged up. Just too many red flags for me. So I'm shying away from Judkins, at his ADP right now. If he's healthy, we see that he's clearly can produce. But again, I think there's just too many red flags here. A situation to keep an eye on. Samson, we know, can produce. He is a good pass catcher at the backfield. So if you want to take some shots on Samson later in your drafts, just because. You want to maybe get, that production if Judkins is out, by all means, I'm not against that. But Judkins, like for me, he was already someone that I was concerned about going into this season, and this injury just puts a little bit more concern for me there. You look at Jadarian Price, he's back at practice. All signs points towards him being that guy for Seattle early on in the season. So long as Zach Charbonnet is recovering from his injury. So that's basically, the primary stuff here at the running back position. Obviously, a lot to cover here. We know that Kyle Monangai hyperextended his knee. He's week to week. This is clearly, you know, this is clearly a big piece of news, right? Because we expected Monangai to have a solidified role and work in some type of tandem with DeAndre Swift. If Monangai is out, this is huge for Swift, right? Because this means that Swift is going to get the bulk of the workload for this backfield so long as Monangai is out. So it's a situation to keep a close eye on, because it's one of those situations where we could view this two ways, right? Like you draft Swift, you lean on him early on if Monangai is going to miss time into the season, and then you could sell him after once Monangai is ready to return at a high price, or you could just, hey, I've been investing. I personally love Swift's price. Like for me, I'm not like I was, not overly excited about Swift because obviously Monangai was going to carve out a role and cap that ceiling. Um, but Swift's price is way too cheap. So I'm still investing in Swift. I think, you continue to invest in Swift. Monangai, if you want to handcuff, you can. Just understand you're investing in an injured handcuff, a hyperextended knee. Doesn't appear to be long-term issue, but week to week is not ideal, right? With only what? We're less than a month away to start the season. So you're talking about a 3-week window, I believe it is, from yesterday. So that being the case, if he's week to week, you might not have Mononga. I like the idea, especially if in investing in these kind of players in leagues that you have IR spots, I'm okay with. In shallow bench leagues, if he's still out by the time you're drafting and you're getting closer to the start of the season, you might have to reevaluate that situation in shallow bench leagues there. Kalen Black, he obviously working there. He was dealing with an injury. He's back at practice. He continues to battle Jordan James for that RB2 spot behind McCaffrey, a situation to monitor. I like Kalen Black. I think he's an interesting late round click in deeper formats. Trey Benson, he's back, but hasn't been able to participate in 11 on 11 drills. Uh, Whatever. This backfield, we know what we're going to get from it. It's all Jeremiah Love there. And then you have obviously you have other backs. They have Tyler Algier there. Obviously James Conner's in the picture. So like Benson would be fighting what for the depth piece really. But Tony Pollard, he's basically missing practice, but doesn't appear to be anything serious that he's dealing with there. So that's the running back position. We're gonna dive into the wide receiver position. My guy Jaden Higgins, man, like someone I was very bullish on this offseason, someone I talked about a lot. I thought that he was entering the second year here and was going to make a significant impact for this Houston Texans offense. I was expecting, a bounce, or I'm expecting a bounce back season for this offense. This is a big blow for CJ Stroud because Higgins was really emerging. Reports were very strong regarding his growth and his development. And this is sad, man, because I thought he was gonna, be a big impactful receiver here for Houston in 2026. That's gonna have to be put to the side now. He's out with an ACL tear. The team's signed Sterling Shepard today. We got Jalen Noel. He's returned from injury, and they're expecting his role to increase there. The team also has Xavier Hutchinson that now is expected to see an increased role. So for me, I've been investing in Nico Collins. He's a top five receiver on my board. I talked about this on episode 155 of the My Number Saw podcast. That was yesterday, Thursday, August 20th. I talked about the receiver position, the guys I'm targeting. He was one of those that I featured in that podcast, in that episode. And, I think that this is just going to increase the opportunities for there. I think Dalton Schultz quietly sees, a steady amount of opportunities on a week-to-week basis. I think he's actually an interesting floor player. And we'll talk about him at the tight end position next week. But Jalen Noel now becomes someone I'm investing in later rounds in deeper formats. Because, if he stays healthy, I think there's an opportunity here for increased snaps and routes for someone like Jalen Noel. So obviously a situation that we have to monitor. Um, but now there's no clear-cut guy that I'm very comfortable with, like I was before out of Houston, where Jaden Higgins is that guy. So for me, it's probably going to be Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz as far as pass catching players that I'm comfortable with, to start the season. Jalen Noel, more of a stash and kind of see how that plays out situation. And of course, obviously, we like the backfield here in Houston, so we're in on that as well. We've already talked about that. And all right, so now we'll talk here. Parker Washington, he is back at practice here. Okay. Parker Washington obviously was dealing with a little injury there, but nothing serious by any means here. It appears that he's working his way into the wide receiver one duties here in Jacksonville. The reports have suggested that he's done a phenomenal job when he's been on the field, right? And there's been mixed reports. There have been reports where Brian Thomas is going to be the guy. There's been reports where it's Parker Washington. I've seen reports where it's Jacoby Myers. Like we've seen all sorts of reports here. They've been very, I want to say, inconsistent. Though the most recent reports have been very steady when it comes to Parker Washington being that guy and what the buzz surrounding that, locker room is. Expecting him to be the number one target there. Um, if that is the case, he would end up being one of the better targets at ADP. I still like Jacoby Myers. I still think Jacoby Myers is going to offer a weekly floor for us in fantasy in PPR settings. But again, monitor this Parker Washington news, and then if he does indeed suit up in a preseason game and he performs, and you see that they emphasize him in the passing game, might have to reevaluate this receiving group in Jacksonville. For now, obviously, I have him and Jacoby Myers very close to one another, as well as Brian Thomas. I have them ranked all very closely to one another here. So, a situation here definitely to keep a very close eye on when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And for those wondering, I literally have them ranked Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington in all within 15 spots of each other in my ranking. So that can be found over at fantasyguru.com, my auction draft book there, constant updates. I'll be updating it over the weekend, probably after tonight's preseason game. So keep an eye out for that update there. We look at Puka Nacua. He's dealing with groin issues. I talked about this yesterday, right? Like, I I love Puka Nacua. We know, we know that when he's healthy, right? He is going to be an elite producer on a week-to-week basis. Problem is, he's always dinged up, right? Like he deals with injuries, has missed time, already dealing with a groin issue. Apparently, it's not serious. I'm not overreacting to this. I'm not adjusting the rankings, but this is just one of those things where it's just like, ah, you know. So for me, something to keep an eye on. Nothing to panic about. But I did want to bring that up because he is someone that's going in the top five picks in most drafts, top six picks in most drafts, and you don't want to you don't want to be dealing with that, right? But again, nothing to do, no reason to adjust the rankings at all. Okay, no reason to adjust the rankings. Steelers, both DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, they remain silent there. They've missed practice. Apparently, none of them are dealing with a serious injury. Pittman says his hamstring is okay. Both are expected to be ready and available for week 1. Just something to monitor if you're investing here. We're not expecting high volume passing in Pittsburgh, right? So you're probably not drafting these players to start and be a core part of your starting lineup. So again, I like Pittman. I'm very intrigued by Pittman this season. Um, I think that the kind of receiver that Aaron Rodgers will lean on often, and I think he can maybe give a relatively reliable floor. I guess is what I want to say, a reliable floor in PPR scoring settings. um, Again, if I draft Pittman, it's not with the intention of starting him. It's more of a depth piece for me, and that's how I've been targeting him. But he's becoming a little bit more interesting to me as we get closer to the start of the season, even though he's dealing with an injury, right? Like it has nothing. It's just he's just someone that I think when you look at the more I look at his profile, the more I look at what he brings to the table, the skill sets that he brings to the table, the more I think that he's going to get in sync with Aaron Rodgers. I do think it's going to take some time simply because he continues to miss time in practice because of the injury. But again, I do think once that chemistry is built, I think Michael Pittman is going to be someone Aaron Rodgers looks often to in 2026. Cardinal tape back at practice. Nothing to see here. Could play the next preseason game based on the reports. Again, these rookies missing time is not ideal. We talked about it with Carson Beck, not ideal here. We talked about it with some of the running backs, not ideal here either. So make sure you're keeping an eye on this. We like Wando Robinson over Connor Tate here in Tennessee. Like I have a Robinson ranked ahead of Tate. I do think Robinson becomes that security blanket for Cam Ward. I talked about that yesterday on the podcast, episode 155. So you could tune in and check that out. But my thoughts are on Wando Robinson. Tate, good prospect. But again, I just don't know if that role is going to be consistent right off the bat in year 1, and especially if he's continues to miss any time or if he suffers any setbacks and is forced to miss any time with that injury there. We have Makai Lemon, my guy. I love Makai Lemon. Everyone knows that. I think he's going to make an immediate impact. I was very concerned. He was dealing with a hamstring injury, was sidelined, back at practice. That's good news. Still something to keep a close eye on. I'm still investing in Makai Lemon. I'm investing with him with the same sense of, the same thought process as Pittman, right? Where I'm not going to rely on Lemon in week 1. I'm not counting on Lemon in week 1. He is a stash receiver for me. See what happens there. I think he becomes that wide receiver 2 for Philadelphia. I think he's going to give you, he's going to make an immediate impact for the Eagles, right? Like he is a polished route runner. I think he has very good hands. And he was one of my favorite receiver prospects coming out of this, in this year's draft class. And that hasn't changed for me. So I absolutely love this spot here for Makai Lemon. I just need him to get back on the field, right? So this is one step in the right direction here. Has plenty of time to get, back up to speed before the start of the season. So someone that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on. We now move to Tyreek Hill, who is a free agent. And this is just, obviously not impactful information, but just information, right? It looks like Hill isn't expected to sign before the start of the season. That's not surprising. But again, it was something that popped up this week. His name was in the headlines. Look, we don't know if he's going to play again, and if he dies, what kind of impact he's going to make. A gruesome injury. Apparently, he doesn't can't even uh, put weight on that leg. Um, yeah, nothing to see here really. Jameson Williams back at practice. He was dealing with a shoulder injury there, not serious. That's good news there for the Lions and those who invested in Jameson Williams. Sorry, Jalen Millen. That's my next guy here. He returned back to practice. He missed several weeks there with his injury. Someone that because of his absence, we saw Ted Hurst benefit. gonna see what happens here, right? Like who's getting the reps. Hurst has been doing good. There's been good reports. Still think McMillan will be ahead of Hurst in the depth chart there, but obviously a situation to monitor there. Mentioned Jalen Noel back at practice. Quentin Johnston apparently avoided a serious injury after suffering a scary injury there. But again, it doesn't appear to be serious. Skylar Bell continued to miss time there. Talk about young players missing time, missing opportunities, missing practice. Here you go. Perfect example of that. Jake Bobo. He was carted off the field this today during practice with what appears to be a serious knee injury. No live reports have been reported while I've been on the show, while I've been recording this podcast. So obviously not a good situation there for Seattle's receiver there. We now dive into the tight end position. Sam Laporta dealing with a hip injury. Apparently, the injury is not concerned, and the his week one availability is not in question at this time. Um, but this is obviously worth noting, right? Because we know that last year Laporta suffered a season-ending back injury. We know that he's dealt with injuries throughout his career. Um, so something to again, we're not going to overreact to this news. It doesn't appear to be, serious. He should still, be ready for week one based on the reports or whatnot. But definitely something to keep in mind when you're drafting Sam Laporta. That doesn't mean you have to draft a backup tight end. Don't ask me that question. The answer is always going to be no. Don't draft up a backup tight end. There's no need for that. You could pick up that kind of production on waivers. You don't need to draft a backup tight end. If you're drafting Laporta, it's because you expect him to be ready in week one. Like I expect him to be ready in week one. I've been drafting Laporta happily. But again, this is obviously not ideal, right? For a tight end who has missed time already battling injuries. For those wondering where I have Sam Laporta on my board, he currently sits at tight end 8 on my board. He's been kind of fluctuating between that tight end 6 and 8 range for me, right outside the top 5 at the tight end position. But again, someone who I am very, very excited about this year. I think a bounce back season is certainly in order for him. And you look at his ADP, right? It's very reasonable. Tight end 6, generally coming off the board after 70th, the 70th overall pick. So in a 10-team league, you're looking at, around 8 plus. In a 12-team league, you're looking at around 6 plus. So again, I think you're getting good value out of someone who has a pretty significant ceiling, if you ask me. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy or not, and that's the big question when it comes to Sam Laporta here. Tyler Warren, it appears that his groin injury isn't too serious. He's expected to be ready for the start of the season, but it's something that we have to monitor closely here. He's expected back in practice next week. That remains to be seen. Obviously he had a big rookie season as far as what his role was concerned. He produced some pretty good numbers there, showed some signs of elite, level playing at the tight end position. So for me, someone that, obviously this is a concern, especially with, Daniel Jones also returning from an injury. So there's now multiple red flags here for someone like Tyler Warren. But still has to be viewed as a top 10 tight end in everyone's board. I currently have him inside my top 7, top 5. And gonna monitor the situation even closer. But right now he remains inside that top 5 for me. And I'll be investing in him as such. Um, George Kittle talked about him earlier when we were talking about dribbling. He's returning and recovering from the Achilles injury he suffered last year. Apparently, he's ahead of schedule. Visited with the doctor. All signs point towards him being ready in week one. How impactful he's going to be in week one, that remains to be seen. How impactful he's going to be on early in the season as he recovers and returns from this injury, that remains to be seen. Um, Look, when fully healthy, we know what Kittle brings to the table. He has top 3 potential at the position, right? And he's an elite tight end. Problem is, he's returning from a serious injury. He's 32 years old. And we just don't know what he's going to look like in week one, right? We just don't know like what he's going to look like this season. I am apprehensive when it comes to George Kittle. I do have my concerns. Uh, haven't taken him as my tight end one, in fantasy leagues at this time, but I'm not gonna fault anyone for doing it, right? Like I get it. Again, everything is pointing in the right direction, but we've seen this before, right? Like there are some players that return from injuries and they hit the ground running. Some players that return from injuries takes a couple of weeks to get going. Some a couple of months. Some takes a season, maybe a season and a half, right? We've seen that before. This is a serious injury. I know that the results and the recovery has been better in recent years. Medicine has gotten better, and because of that, it's been, helpful for these players. But still, I can't, ignore the fact that he's coming off a major injury at this age. And when the injury occurred too, right? Like that's the big part for me. So, something to monitor, but all signs are pointing upwards, when it comes to George Kittle and his recovery and where he stands. So, you look at the Chargers already dealing with some offensive line issues. We talked about them and why we like them, and why we're investing in them and what we wanted, and the reason why is because of the offensive line. We talked about Slater, dealing with soreness, but now Tyler Biadasz, he's potentially going to be sidelined for an extended amount of time. He suffered an injury there, expected to be a long-term injury. No official word, regarding the injury at this time for me. But man, obviously something to monitor there because we talked about what do we like? Hampton. This affects Hampton. This affects the throwing. The timing for Justin Herbert. This affects the entire offense. We do the offensive line breakdown over at fantasyguru.com for a reason. We emphasize the importance of offensive lines for a reason. And losing a key part of your offensive line obviously is not ideal. Danny Pinter out for the Ravens there. He tore his patellar tendon. So we need a new starting center there for Baltimore Ravens, which is, he was competing he was competing there. So now we know who's going to be the starting center there in Baltimore. And then that's really it. Like those are, a couple things. Seattle signed Trevon Diggs, just obviously something worth noting. Nick Bosa's tendonitis, this defensive stuff that I have here as notes, that looks to be improving. But overall, like those are the biggest, storylines, the biggest the news, the notes from training camp this week. I only did one episode this week. I've been only doing it one episode. Um, gathering all the information at the end of the week and presenting it to you guys and how we should be looking through this information, right? We've obviously had some noise. We obviously have some impactful stuff, some noteworthy stuff, some things that we just put now on our list of things to watch, not necessarily reacting to it. So when we look at the stock up, right, we're looking at guys like Kenneth Walker. That report is good. Travis Etienne with no Kamara. That's a good stuff. Braylon Allen, I think you could look at his stock as being up now as someone who, if Breece Hall is going to miss time, could see, some opportunities early on in the season. We talked about Jakor Krosky Merritt and Rashad White's absent. That's boosting up his stock. Parker Washington, a name to watch closely. When you look at stock down, Jaden Higgins obviously out for the season. Alvin Kamara stock is down now that he is going to miss multiple weeks. Jaden Blue, given where he's at upon returning, that's another player that his stock is slightly down for me. And then situations I'm going to be monitoring closely in the upcoming weeks. We got to monitor Nacua's injury. We got to monitor Breece Hall's injury, Sam Laporta's injury, Judkins' situation there. I'm going to continue to monitor the Commanders' backfield. I'm going to monitor the Saints' backfield, the Steelers' wide receiver situation there. We got multiple players there out with injuries, sidelined with injuries. I'm going to monitor Seattle's backfield situation, see what happens there. So lots of things I'm going to be monitoring there as far as positional and some of these we know the starters. We're just looking at the backup situation because of injury. So a lots to monitor here in the upcoming weeks as we get closer and closer to the start of the NFL season. Again, this is the Training Camp Report series brought to you by FantasyGuru.com. If you're not subscribing already, if you're not checking out the content there, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend you do. We had our training camp event today, Friday, August 21st, actually still going on here while I'm recording this podcast. Make sure all of those presentations are live, and you can also catch them on replay. So you make sure you get tuned into that. And if you make it, if you hear this and you make it and you get that ticket to the training camp event, even if you're catching everything on replay, you get to join that poker game that we're going to be playing tonight here. The staff, subscribers, everyone who attended the event has a ticket to that poker game. So make sure you're checking that out. Again, today we talked about all of the stuff that's going on there in training camp, everything we're looking at, situations that have changed, injuries piling up, depth chart changes, quarterback situations that are more clear than they were a week ago, and just everything that has transpired this week in training camp, in practice, and we even took a look at a couple of things from last night's games that we're paying attention to. Still lots of things to monitor, still some uncertain things that we're going to continue to look at, and that's why we continue this training camp report series here at FantasyGuru.com. I am Armando Marsal. Remember, folks, you can catch this show and all of the Mind of Marsal episodes over at my YouTube channel at Mind of Marsal. Make sure you're checking that out. Make sure you're subscribing to my channel. Put tons of content up there. The podcast, do shorts, a ton of good stuff there. So make sure you're checking that out. And anywhere you're consuming the podcast, if you're liking, if you're rating, if you're reviewing, if you're just, whatever it is, it's good for the podcast. The support means a lot to me, means a lot to the show. And I greatly appreciate every one of you here for tuning in and spending some time of your day here with me. Hopefully you enjoyed this journey through the Mind of Marsal. Until next time.